Hey everybody, it's Jerry, and what I'm going to show you how to make today is something for the Halloween, Thanksgiving season, and that is pumpkin pie. But we're going to make a dairy-free, gluten-free pumpkin pie, so it's going to be healthier, hopefully. So the first thing that we're going to do is make the pie crust, and we're going to start with 1 cup of vegetable shortening. Now this is compressed palm oil, but you can use other vegetable shortening, but you want to use something non-dairy. And let it sit at room temperature for a while, just until it softens a little bit. And so the first thing I'm going to do is take the 1 cup of shortening and just cream it. I just like to use a fork to cream it. We've got it nice and creamy, smooth. And the next thing we're going to do is add an egg to that. So what I'll do is just break the egg right into the bowl, and you want to beat the egg a little bit off to the side before you mix it in. So I'll just beat the egg a little bit so it's mixed up, and then just blend that in with the shortening. Alright, so once we've got that mixed up really well, the next thing we're going to do is add 1 cup of brown rice flour. Also add a ½ cup of potato starch. Put that away. Okay, and then we're also going to add a 1/4 teaspoon of xanthan gum. Now, that's something you probably haven't heard or seen too much of. That's with an X, xanthan gum. And you really only need just a little bit, so we're just going to add a 1/4 teaspoon. And that will help it to stick together because there's no gluten in there to help it really stay together. And the xanthan gum will do that. So now we're going to just mix all that together, forming a dough. Now I have some cold water here as well, so if we find that we need a little bit of liquid, okay, I'm going to add just a little bit of water to this. And what I like to do is keep the rice flour nearby so you can kind of, get your hands a little bit floury so that it doesn't stick to your hands. And you just go ahead and kind of push it all together. Form a nice ball of dough with it. Okay, so we have a nice ball of dough here. Okay, so now that we have a nice ball of dough, what we're going to do is take 2 pieces of wax paper, and we're going to press the ball in between the wax paper. Now I'm going to put a little bit of flour on the wax paper first. Ball of dough down in the middle of the wax paper. You don't have to get it too flat at this point, that'll come later. And then I'm going to put a little more flour on top. And then I'm going to put another piece of wax paper on top of that. And we're going to put it in the refrigerator for about an hour or so, just so it gets really nice and chilled. And then we'll come back and we'll roll it out. So now we have our dough nice and chilled, and we're going to proceed to roll it out. Now we have to be very careful. We don't want it to get too warm. If it does start to get too warm, put it in the freezer for a few minutes. So just very lightly and carefully with a rolling pin. Just Just roll it in both directions, trying to maintain a nice round shape to it. So now I have a pie dish which has been sprayed with coconut oil so that it won't stick to it. Just make sure that it looks like it's big enough. So then you want to carefully peel off the top layer of wax paper. And whereas with a normal dough with gluten in it, you have more freedom. You can fold it and pick it up. This is a little more delicate, so what we're going to do is put the pie dish down on top of it. And then we're going to carefully kind of flip it over. We'll get a little flour spraying, but that's okay. The kitchen is meant to be messy. And then carefully peel this wax paper off. Okay. And then press the dough down into the dish. Then you can just fold it under, kind of just push it all together. Alright, and then very carefully what you want to do is just flute the edges of it. So you're going to sort of squeeze pieces of it together, spaced out about every couple of inches. And then the next thing we can do, and this is up to you if you like to do this or not, I like to put a little pattern in the flutes around the edge of the pie, the pie crust. So just take a fork and dip it in the brown rice flour so that it doesn't stick, and then just press down a little bit the tines of the fork into the dough. The bottom of the crust, just so that when it cooks, it doesn't bubble up. Just want to let the air out. Okay, so this is what we want it to look like, if you can see that. Alright, so the pie crust is ready, and now we're going to go on to make the filling. So we're back, and unfortunately I didn't have the camera on when I was putting together the filling. So I just realized that in the middle of putting the filling into the pie crust. So I'm just going to describe to you very quickly how I made the filling. I took 2 cups of pumpkin puree, and the way I made that was I took a small pumpkin, sliced it up into 2-inch wide strips, and then cooked it in a 350-degree oven for about 20 to 30 minutes on each side, so it's fully cooked. And then it's very easy to scoop out the seeds. They just kind of will come right out. And then take the pumpkin, kind of scoop it away from the skin so that you have your cooked pumpkin. Throw it in a food processor, and you want about 2 cups of that. So if you take a small pumpkin about this big, that'll give you about 2 cups of pumpkin puree. So I add the pumpkin puree. I added 1/3 cup of pure cane sugar, and then I added my spices. Now, spices are very much to taste, so I like a lot of cinnamon. I use 2 teaspoons of cinnamon, a 1/2 teaspoon of nutmeg, a 1/2 teaspoon of ginger, and then just a sprinkling of clove. Mix that all together. Then I took 2 eggs which have been lightly beaten and added that in, mixed that together, and finally took 2 cups of rice milk, which is scalding, so you just heat it up. With rice milk it's nice because you don't have to worry if it starts to boil. It's not going to wreck the rice milk like it would with milk. So 2 cups of scalding rice milk, just add that in and mix that all together really, really well, and that gave me the filling, which I have here, and I'm just scooping it into the pie crust. Alright, so then we carefully will place this in an oven which has been preheated to 400 degrees, and we're going to cook that for about 50 minutes, 50 minutes, or until the knife comes out clean from the center. So here we have the completed pumpkin pie just out of the oven, and it took about 48 minutes, a little under 50 minutes. I didn't want it to get too burned on the edges, but it smells really good, and I can't wait for it to cool and try it. So try it yourself at home and let me know how you like it. Enjoy.